Hey, Mel, that's going to be your alias. Thanks for completing the 2-minute child assessment and child and parent assessment. I am Matt Barnes, and thank you so much for trusting in me to give you some feedback on your child. Some of it may sting a little bit, but it's my best estimate of where I see you and your children headed, or your child headed, based on what I have read from your report and your survey. So, reminding you, all of the services that you will find on my site are free, including this service, including a one-on-one conversation with me if you'd like to do that. So feel free to schedule that after this conversation if you have more questions. Let's get to the survey. So again, you're a parent. You heard about me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of my writing on LinkedIn, so glad you picked up on that. You've got a 6 to 9 year old child, and as I learned later, your child is autistic. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. No other children in the home, traditional K-12 school. The child doesn't have any authority, or parent doesn't have any authority over the child's learning. That's pretty normal in a traditional educational model, and particularly in one where the child has some challenges, some learning differences. That's a real red flag. It's how to solve it is one that will require further conversation, but essentially, the more unusual the child is, the more they really need their own learning plan. And frankly, most kids are different from the other, right? I've not met two kids that are the same, yet for some reason we think that putting them all in a one-size-fits-all model somehow will work. It doesn't for very many kids, and it sounds like for yours as well. So let's go ahead and keep going through this. Your child has areas of curiosity. And so my argument is that these would be the areas that we would start a learning journey with, not somehow try to fit it in, shoehorn it after all the other school stuff is done. So science and tech issues, of which are fascinating. Pottery, which is fantastic. In fact, let me just tell you a quick story. We do a Youth Entrepreneur Award. It's the first time we've done it, but we had the contest last weekend, the finalist contest last weekend. And the winner was a young woman named Claire, who's a potter. And she's 14. She won $4,000. Because we were really impressed at what she was learning as a result of being a potter and selling at farmers markets and, again, entrepreneurship. And so that just happened 2 days ago. So there's opportunities to take pottery and build it into a learning plan and a learning path, and would love to talk to you more about how that might look. Again, not much of the child's learning is in their area of curiosity. Big problem in my view. Now, here's a question that I wanted to pause and spend some time talking with you about. So, who should be primarily responsible for a child's learning? All of these answers, there's some truth to them. But the place that I come down to now, after really having thought about this for a long period of time, is that the community is not actually the answer that I would give. It's the child. And the child at some point is going to have to be able to pursue their own learning, pursue their own interests, and to do so responsibly and respectfully. And so now, again, your child has some difficulties and challenges, and so maybe in that circumstance, there needs to be a broader community surrounding the child, in which case that might make most sense. But generally speaking, I'm pushing to make sure that the child becomes able to stand on their own 2 feet to the degree that's possible. So just a little bit of context about how I think about that question. If your child is responding to failure as a problem, big problem, because life is a series of problems to be overcome. And if you're trying to avoid problems, you will not get through life very well. Child is kind of more or less not getting that much more curious as they get older. Again, big red flag. Not motivated to get good grades. That actually, to me, is actually a positive. Because if you're not motivated to get good grades, you might be motivated to do what learning is supposed to be about, to fall in love with it. Grades actually steer a person away from the process of learning and replace it with a focus on a grade that oftentimes doesn't represent what the child actually learned, or if the child is actually enjoying the process of learning it as well. A little bit of tech use for content, a little bit of tech use for consuming or consumption, really going to push you towards this 1 and 2 level where the child is producing and not consuming on social media. You know that change is going to happen in this next 10 years. It's going to be unbelievable. I could not agree more. And here's the problem, that another red flag that I would put out for you. And so you don't feel like you have a lot of people that your child could go to ask, or the child doesn't feel comfortable asking. This is common in our fractured, individualistic, kind of isolated society. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so what I'm going to really encourage you to think about here is, how do you begin building connections with other capable, competent adults? Because as your child deals with problems and you're not around, that's going to happen. You're not going to be around forever. That child needs to be able to go to a community of others that he or she can ask for help and know they're going to get reasonably competent responses. And so I usually recommend that families really think hard about joining a church community for this reason, to begin engaging that church community in relationship building and knitting together a community of support around that child. All right. Now, this is great. Now, a lot of one-on-one time with caring, competent adults. Fantastic. Very rare. And so definitely don't lose that. That is really great. And again, creates great insulation for a child. You'd prefer the child to be a hard worker, generally speaking. I agree with that. Critical thinker, curious, clear purpose for the life. These are all things that I absolutely encourage and endorse. Now, here we get to the one that caused me some real heartburn. You don't think the child's education is complete. And so you say definitely no. And so my question back to you is, if they're going someplace and they're not getting a complete education, then we got a big problem. And that means you're going to have to build your own learning plan. Now, they have an individual on paper, on purpose learning plan, but I'm guessing this is part of the school-based IEP, individual learning plan, right, or individualized learning plan, which every kid should have, not just kids that have some challenges. But if the child did not play a role in building that learning plan, then I would argue it's useless or close to useless, because the aim here, again, I'm trying to get this, the aim for the child, every child, is for them to own their own learning. Because once that happens, mom, dad, you don't have to think about and worry about your child anymore, because they can lead themselves. That is what we're after. We are not after every adult doing stuff for the child and the child waiting passively and following the script and following what they're told. That is not how it's going to work. All right, so your child is autistic. He has no friends, is excluded at school despite having one-on-one support. He is naturally smart, curious, and creative, but school is causing serious mental health issues. This is actually common in lots of educational environments. I work with a lot of parents, and I see this a lot. So you're not alone. The difference is you're reaching out and asking for help around this. And so what I would recommend is a couple things. One, really got to get connected within a church community or some civic group or some homeschool community, some group where you can begin to connect with other kids and other family members, so that your child can have other adults to connect with and to confide in, but also other young people. Now, I will say that friendship doesn't mean just kids your age of your child. That's another place that I want to really challenge. Friendship is any human that you have a common interest with or enjoy being around and spending time together. So whether the child is 10 and the adult is 30 or 50 or 80, there can be friendship there. And so don't hesitate to encourage and to try to build friendships that are not just age specific. I know that's a part of growing up, but please don't believe the lie that the only friends that matter are in your same age level. That doesn't make any sense. Certainly is not the way that adult life works. Correct? So, okay. I hope this was helpful. Remind you that everything that you hear here and everything I do on my website is free of charge. And I encourage you to reach out to me, schedule a one-on-one conversation if that would be helpful. We can talk about some of these things in greater detail. And I think that's it for now. So Matt Barnes signing off. Thanks so much. I hope this was helpful. Hug your child today. See ya.